The loudspeakers crackled over the packed city square, but Ava Morgan barely heard them. Her pulse thudded louder than the chants around her. The late afternoon sun caught on the edges of the protest sign she carried. Clean whiteboard with careful handwriting she'd stayed up half the night perfecting. A line of officers stood ahead, visors down, arms crossed. Ava felt their gaze long before she reached them. The woman beside her murmured, "Stay close." Ava nodded, even though she'd been doing this work for years. Then one officer stepped forward, broad frame, jaw clenched, sunglasses reflecting the crowd like a distorted mirror. Officer Kane. His voice cut through the noise. "You don't belong at the front." Ava stiffened. For a moment, the crowd's rhythm faltered. She tried to step past him, but he blocked her path with deliberate slowness, placing one gloved hand on her shoulder. Not rough, but possessive, controlling. Invisible chains disguised as protocol. "Let go of me," Ava whispered. He leaned in. "People like you start trouble. I'm preventing it." The words hit harder than the grip. Around them, watchers paused, some recording, some looking away, some waiting to see how far he'd go. Ava's throat tightened, anger rising like a flash fire. She had handled officials, reporters, committees, even senators, but this felt different. This was targeted, intentional. Kane smirked, tapping the badge on his chest as if it made him untouchable. "A step further," he said, "and I'll remove you." A sudden hush rolled outward. Ava's fingers trembled around her sign, because she knew the truth he didn't. She wasn't just attending this rally. She had written a law that made it legal. And Officer Kane was seconds away from making the biggest mistake of his career. Ava Morgan tightened her grip on her sign as the crowd surged forward. The chant, steady, rhythmic, echoed between the tall buildings framing the city square. She moved with purpose, her steps calm despite the shaking in her chest. She had attended dozens of protests, but something about today felt sharper, more fragile. Maybe it was the tension in the air. Maybe it was the way the officers stood, not neutral, but already suspicious. She spotted Officer Kane immediately. Broad shoulders, mirror sunglasses, a stance meant to intimidate. She'd seen men like him before. Too many. As she stepped toward the designated entry lane, Kane moved into her path. "Stop right there," he barked. Ava lifted her chin. "I'm heading to the protest zone." "Not you," he replied. He didn't look at the others beside her, only her. "Turn around." A few nearby protesters slowed, watching. Ava kept her voice steady. "This lane is open to all participants. Section 4 of the state code." Kane raised a hand sharply. "Don't quote laws at me." "That's my field," she said softly. Kane leaned closer. "People like you think rules don't apply." Ava's stomach nodded. "I'm following every rule." "You're testing me," he said, "and I don't like being tested." The crowd murmured behind her. Phones rose. Kane noticed and straightened, adjusting his belt as if preparing for a show. "Step aside," Ava said, taking a breath. "I'm going through." "No," Kane said flatly. She tried to sidestep him. He mirrored her movement instantly. "Kane," another officer muttered, "she's not doing anything wrong." He ignored the comment. "Ma'am," last warning. Ava inhaled, grounding herself. She wasn't going to back down. "I have the right to." Kane's hand shot forward. Not a punch, not a grab, but he set his palm directly on her shoulder, stopping her mid-step. The crowd reacted instantly. "What are you doing?" "Hey!" "That's unnecessary." "Get your hand off her." Ava froze. She felt the weight of his touch more than its pressure, authoritative, dismissive, racialized. The kind of touch that said he could do more if he wanted. "I said turn around." Kane growled. Ava met his gaze, or the reflection of herself in his sunglasses. "Remove your hand." Something flickered in his posture. Annoyance, ego, challenge. He squeezed ever so slightly. "Make me?" A wave of heat rushed behind her eyes. She wanted to push his hand away. She wanted to scream. She wanted to remind him she'd helped write the very law he was weaponizing against her. But she forced herself to stay calm. "You're crossing a line," Ava whispered. Kane laughed. Lady, I'm the line. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Ava swallowed. No, the law is the line, and you're breaking it. His jaw tensed. He looked down at the sign she held. Neatly written, peaceful in message. Without warning, he grabbed it. Hey! Ava reached for it. Kane snapped it in half. The crack echoed across the lane like a gunshot. Protesters shouted in outrage. Officers rushed in. Phones recorded from every angle. Ava stepped back, breath tight, heart racing with disbelief and fury. Kane smirked, tossing the broken pieces aside. Now you're obstructing. One more word and I'll detain you. Ava opened her mouth, and the world erupted around her. The shout rose from the crowd like a breaking wave. Hey, leave her alone. What's wrong with you? She didn't do anything. Phones were everywhere now, held high, recording, circling. Ava stood still, her breath sharp in her chest as the noise surged around her. Kane's posture stiffened, as if he'd been pushed into a spotlight he never expected. Back up, he barked at the crowd. Everyone back up now. An officer beside him whispered urgently, Kane, stop. Cameras are everywhere. Kane shot him a glare. I'm handling it. Ava steadied herself. You just destroyed my property. Ma'am. Kane snapped, I'm giving you a lawful order to step away from this area. That's not lawful, Ava replied, her voice trembling but controlled. Section 4 allows unrestricted entry to the protest zone. Kane sliced his hand through the air. Enough. Then louder. You're resisting instructions. Detain her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Detain what? Ava stepped back. I haven't resisted anything. You refused orders, he said coldly. No. Ava countered. I quoted the law. Two officers hesitated before approaching her. One whispered, Ma'am, please don't make sudden movements. Ava raised her hand slowly. I'm not resisting. I'm complying. Kane smirked. Good. Let's get you away from the chaos you caused. I didn't cause anything, Ava replied. You escalated. Put her in the van, Kane interrupted. The officers exchanged uneasy looks but followed his command. Ava felt their hands lightly guiding her arms, not rough, not violent, but unnecessary. Sir, one officer murmured to Kane, we really don't have cause. You have your orders, Kane snapped. The officer swallowed hard and nodded. The crowd shouted in outrage as Ava was walked toward the police van. Hands reached out to her in solidarity. We're with you. Stay strong. We saw everything. Ava kept her head high, despite the sting forming behind her eyes. She had read thousands of case files, fought 100 battles, but being physically removed like this, singled out, felt like a deep, personal fracture. As the van door opened, she turned to Kane. You're making a serious mistake. He smiled without warmth. You should have stayed quiet. Ava stepped inside. The metal interior felt colder than the air outside. A single bench, a small bar window, and the faint smell of disinfectant. The door shut behind her with a hollow thud. One of the escorting officers hesitated before leaving. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I don't think this is right. Ava's voice softened. Then say something. I can't, he whispered. Not to him. Ava held his gaze. Silence is how abuse of power survives. He flinched, then stepped back and closed the door. Ava inhaled deeply, grounding herself as the van vibrated faintly with the sounds of protest outside. Moments later, the door opened again, Kane standing in the doorway, arms folded. Well, he said, anything you want to confess before we write this up? Confess? Ava frowned. To what? Instigating, refusing directives, interfering with crowd control. Ava stared at him. None of that happened. He shrugged. My report will say it did. A cold flicker ran through her veins. That's falsifying arrest information. He leaned in. No one will know. I will, Ava said, and so will anyone who watches the footage. Kane smirked. Footage is subjective. Not when it includes audio, Ava replied, and not when when you broke my sign in front of 200 people. His jaw tightened. You're awfully confident for someone in custody. I'm confident because the law is clear, she said. I'm allowed to be there. I followed every regulation. You violated multiple clauses. Kane scoffed. Lady, you don't know half the regulations. Ava looked him dead in the eye. I do. All of them. He blinked, thrown for a moment by the certainty in her voice. Ava continued calmly. The protest access rules, the detainment guidelines, the crowd control protocol, the anti-retaliation clauses. Everything you claimed so far is legally invalid. Kane's expression darkened. You think quoting codes is going to save you? I think knowledge is what stops power from being abused, Ava said quietly. His lips curled. You think you're smarter than me. Ava didn't answer. You think you have more authority, he pressed. Again, she remained silent. Kane exhaled sharply. Well, guess what? You're in my custody, and I'll tell the story. Footsteps sounded behind him. Sir, a voice called. We have a problem. Kane turned. What now? It's the crowd, the officer said nervously. They're chanting her name. Kane stiffened. What? The officer swallowed. They're shouting, Free Ava. Ava's heart jolted. Someone recognize her? Kane frowned. Who is she? Before the officer could reply, a new voice rang out from outside the van. Shaky, breathless, but loud. That's Ava Morgan. She's a legal strategist who helped draft a statewide protest bill. The words hit the air like a lightning strike. Kane froze. Ava sat still, her heartbeat pounding like a drum in her ears. What did he say? Kane muttered, turning sharply toward the doorway. The officer repeated it. Quieter, he said. She's Ava Morgan. Kane turned back to her slowly. His sunglasses no longer hid the sudden unease in his posture. You, he said. You're what? Some kind of lawyer? Ava met his stare. I'm the senior legal strategist who co-authored the protest law you're trying to twist. Silence. Real, heavy silence. Kane's breath faltered for a second. No, that's impossible. It's not, Ava said. And every minute you keep me here, you're adding to your violations. Outside, the crowd grew louder. Free Ava. Let her go. She wrote the law. Kane stepped back instinctively, as though the truth itself had shoved him. Ava leaned forward slightly. You're not dealing with someone who doesn't know her rights. You're dealing with someone who helped create them. The officer beside Kane whispered urgently, Sir, we need to reassess. Kane snapped out his daze and barked, Quiet! But the crack in his confidence had already formed. Ava watched it spread across his expression. Confusion, panic, disbelief. The door of the van remained open. The crowd's roar grew louder. And Kane, for the first time, looked unsure of his own power. The processing tent hummed with fluorescent lights, their cold glow flattening every shadow into something sharp and uncomfortable. Ava sat on a metal chair in the center, wrists resting calmly on her lap. Officers moved around her in stiff, uneasy patterns, like no one knew where to stand anymore. Kane paced near the entrance, jaw clenched, sunglasses finally off. His eyes were a storm of irritation and disbelief. One officer murmured, Sir, I think we should call this in. We're following protocol. Kane snapped. She resisted entry. Ava exhaled softly. That's not true, Officer Kane. And everyone here knows it. He shot her a glare. Don't start. You're not in control of the situation. Ava kept her tone even. I never tried to be in control. You forced an escalation. He stepped closer. You think your fancy law degree puts you above procedure? I think knowledge protects people from abuse. Her voice remained steady. Including me. An officer behind Kane whispered to another, too loudly. Is it really her? The Ava Morgan? The second officer nodded nervously. I think so. The journalist said she wrote the law. Kane spun around. Nobody speaks unless spoken to. A silence fell again, heavy and brittle. Ava shifted her gaze to the table, where her broken protest sign lay in two clean pieces. It looked almost symbolic now, like a split between what the law promised and how it was enforced. Kane followed her line of sight. Don't look at that. You brought it on yourself. I was standing in a designated entry lane, she replied. That's all. Don't twist this, Kane hissed. You're trying to make me look racist. Ava's heart clenched, not at the word, but at how casually he dodged responsibility. Officer Kane, you singled me out in the crowd. You blocked me, touched me without cause, broke my property. I followed crowd control protocol, he barked. No, Ava said quietly. You followed your bias. A few officers stiffened. Kane stepped closer, lowering his voice. You want to play semantics? Fine, but you're the one who disrupted order. I quoted the law. Ava reminded him. You escalated. And you provoked, he spat. By existing? Ava asked. Or by knowing my rights? For the first time, Kane didn't have an immediate comeback. His mouth opened, then shut. His eyes flickered, unsettled. Something in his posture cracked. Not openly, not enough to acknowledge, but enough that the officers behind him exchanged glances. The tent flap rustled. A supervising lieutenant entered, a tall man with weary eyes, clipboard in hand. He paused at the sight of Ava seated alone while Kane hovered nearby like an anxious storm cloud. Kane, the lieutenant said, I've been reviewing the footage. Kane straightened. Footage can be misleading, sir. The lieutenant raised a brow. Not when 5 angles tell the same story. Ava watched Kane's throat tighten. The lieutenant turned to her. Ma'am, may I have your full name for the report? Kane cut in quickly. I already logged it. She's Ava Morgan, she said calmly. The lieutenant froze. 2 officers nearby whispered, Oh, God! And it's really her. The lieutenant lowered his clipboard slightly. Ms. Morgan, as in the Ava Morgan? Ava nodded once. Yes. Kane blinked rapidly. Wait, that's not. You can't be that Ava Morgan. Ava's tone remained gentle. The lawyer department has followed for the last 2 years. I helped craft it. But, Kane sputtered, but you were just a protester? Ava said, finishing a sentence. Exercising the rights I ensured everyone would have? The lieutenant rubbed his forehead. Kane, did you know who she was? How could I? Kane barked. She didn't identify herself. Ava tilted her head. You never asked. Kane pointed at her. She challenged authority. She quoted regulations. She quoted them correctly. The lieutenant said sharply, which is more than I can say for you at the moment. Kane's face reddened. Ava felt a flicker of empathy, but only a flicker. The emotional weight of the day pressed into her bones, but she refused to shrink. She had fought too hard, survived too much. The lieutenant cleared his throat. Ms. Morgan, I want to apologize on behalf of the department. This situation has been mishandled. Kane snapped. You're taking her side? The lieutenant turned his gaze on Kane. Cool, professional, lethal. I'm taking the side of the law. Something you should be familiar with. Kane inhaled sharply. Sir, she resisted. I saw the footage, the lieutenant said coldly. She didn't. She refused to obey. She followed protocol, the lieutenant corrected. She escalated. You broke her sign. Every officer in the tent shifted uncomfortably. Kane's chest heaved. Ava spoke softly into the charged silence. I don't want special treatment. I want accountability. Kane scoffed bitterly. You people always want something. The moment the words left his mouth, a hush fell so complete Ava could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The lieutenant stared at him in disbelief. Kane, step outside. Now. Kane's eyes widened. Sir, outside. For a moment, it looked like Kane might refuse. His jaw twitched, his fists clenched. But then he turned sharply and stormed out of the tent. The flap snapped behind him. Ava exhaled. She didn't realize she'd been holding her breath. The lieutenant approached her, lowering his voice. Ms. Morgan, I assure you, this will be investigated immediately. You're being released. No charges. No warnings. Ava nodded slowly. Thank you. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming mix of adrenaline, anger, and exhaustion. She lived through discrimination in conference rooms, in interviews and political hearings, but being physically detained hit a deeper, more vulnerable place. The lieutenant hesitated. Is there anything else you want to say before we finalize a release? Ava looked at the officers around her, some remorseful, some ashamed, some simply uncertain. Yes, she said softly. Tell your team the law wasn't written to make you powerless. It was written to prevent moments like this. The lieutenant swallowed. Understood. A moment later, he gestured toward the flap. Let's get you out of here. As Ava stood, the officers instinctively stepped back, forming a path. Her identity was no longer questioned. It was a revelation. And Kane's world was no longer intact. The sunlight hit Ava's face the moment she stepped out of the processing tent. Warm, bright, blinding, so different from the cold fluorescent glare inside. The crowd outside erupted the instant they saw her. There she is. Ava! 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 Let her through. Phones raised. Voices surged. Signs waved. The energy hit her in a single overwhelming wave, supportive, angry, protective. A young woman rushed forward. Are you okay? We saw everything. Ava nodded, though her stomach was still twisting. I'm all right. But she wasn't. Not fully. Behind her, the lieutenant followed like a shadow, scanning the crowd. Kane stood further back, half hidden by the tent flap, jaw tight, eyes narrowed in something between resentment and panic. He flinched every time someone shouted Ava's name. The lieutenant leaned toward her. We're escorting you to the barricade exit. You shouldn't be in the center with the crowd this stirred up. Ava drew a steady breath. I appreciate the concern, Lieutenant, but I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not hiding. He hesitated. Ms. Morgan, you need to understand, this situation is about to get very big. A reporter suddenly appeared, microphone first. Ms. Morgan, is a true officer Kane detained you without cause? Did he know who you were? Did he? The lieutenant stepped between them. Back up, please. More reporters rushed over. Ms. Morgan, do you plan to file a complaint? What were his exact words when he stopped you? Did he threaten you? Ava held up one hand. Please, I'll speak later. The reporters exchanged frustrated glances but didn't push farther. The lieutenant nodded gratefully. As they walked toward the barricade, protesters patted Ava's arm, offered water bottles, and surrounded her in a protective bubble. You're brave. We have your back. You stood there like a rock. He couldn't shake you. Ava gave faint smiles, murmured soft thank yous. But her chest tightened each time she caught sight of Kane's silhouette lingering outside the tent. He wasn't done. That scared her more than anything. Near the barricade, the lieutenant stopped. Ms. Morgan, I'm sorry again. For everything. Ava faced him. Lieutenant, this isn't about me. It's about a pattern. Today is one incident in a long history of incidents. He winced. I know. No, she said, voice gentler. I don't think you do, but you can, if you choose to. He nodded slowly. A shout came from behind them. Lieutenant, city official approaching. A city legal representative, a woman in a navy suit, her ID badge bouncing with her hurried stride. Pushed through the barricade. I need a full incident report immediately, she said. All body cam footage, witness logs, and officer statements. Kane appeared from the tent, panic flashing across his face. Hold on. There's a chain of command. The official cut him off. And I'm above it for matters of civil enforcement. Officer Kane, right? Kane stiffened. Yes. Good. Then you'll be the first I interview. Kane swallowed hard. This is being blown out of proportion. Ava stepped closer. Is it? Or are you realizing now what you did? He turned on her. You think you can ruin my career with one misunderstanding? It wasn't a misunderstanding, Ava replied. It was misconduct. Kane scoffed. Because you say so? No, Ava said. Because the law says so. The official held up her tablet. And because the footage says so. Kane's face paled. Ava didn't enjoy the sight, but she couldn't deny the sense of necessary justice stirring inside her. The official looked at Ava. Ms. Morgan, we need a statement from you as well. Ava nodded. I'll cooperate. Good, the woman said briskly. You can either join us downtown or give a preliminary statement on site. Before Ava could answer, a man from the crowd called out, Ava, we'll walk with you, followed by dozens more voices promising the same. The official's eyes widened. You seem to have support. Ava managed a small smile. That's the power of transparency. She turned to the lieutenant. Thank you for doing the right thing. He lowered his gaze. I should have done it sooner. Kane's jaw flexed. This isn't over. Ava met his stare. No, it's just beginning. The official stepped forward. Ms. Morgan, come with me. We'll get you somewhere quiet to talk. Ava nodded, following her past the barricade. The lieutenant walked alongside them until they reached a row of patrol vehicles arranged like a makeshift corridor. As she passed the last vehicle, Kane called out sharply, Wait! Ava stopped. So did the official. Slowly, Ava turned. Kane took a step forward, struggling to keep his voice low. You could make this easier. Ava raised a brow. On who? On all of us, he muttered. You don't know what happens inside these investigations. Political pressure, department politics. They'll throw me under the bus to protect themselves. Ava blinked slowly. You're worried they'll sacrifice you because of your actions? They always need a villain, he snapped back. Ava inhaled deeply. Kane, you made choices, and now those choices matter. You think I'm the only one who screws up? He said bitterly. I'm just the one who got filmed. That's the point, Ava whispered. So much harm happens where cameras can't reach. Kane's face tightened. I'm not racist. Ava's chest ached, not with sympathy, but with a sharp truth he refused to face. Bias doesn't disappear just because you don't want it. He looked away, shoulders rigid. The official touched Ava's elbow. We should continue. Ava nodded, walking away. Kane remained rooted to the ground, fists clenched, uncertainty finally overtaking his defiance. The moment Ava stepped beyond the barricade, the cheers returned, flooding her senses. Protesters surged forward, forming a protective lane as she walked. You're strong, Ava. We believe you. Speak for us. Ava lifted her hand slightly, a silent gesture of gratitude. Her pulse still raced, her mind still replaying the moment Kane's hand touched her shoulder. But she pushed forward, because justice wasn't about feeling fearless. It was about walking anyway. As they approached a quieter street, a police cruiser pulled up. The official opened the back door, not as a detainee, but as a guest. Let's get you to the municipal building, she said. We'll take your full statement there. Ava paused before entering, looking back at the protest one more time. The crowd swayed like a living tide. Signs lifted, voices rose, and Kane, still standing by the tent, looked smaller than he ever had before. Ava stepped into the cruiser. The door closed, not like confinement, but like the beginning of accountability. Today, the truth had cracked open. Tomorrow, it would break wider. The municipal building's conference room felt too quiet, too clean, after the chaos of the protest. Ava sat at a long wooden table, a cup of untouched water in front of her. The city's legal team shifted papers, checked devices, murmured to one another. A woman in a gray blazer entered, tablet tucked under her arm. Ms. Morgan, thank you for coming. I'm Senior Counsel Liana Reyes. I'll be conducting your official statement. Ava nodded politely. I'm ready. Reyes clicked her tablet on. We'll begin with a clear record. You understand this is a voluntary statement, correct? Yes. And everything you say will be used to assess potential misconduct. Ava folded her hands. That's why I'm here. Reyes took a breath. Good. Let's start at the moment, officer. Kane approached you. Ava began carefully. I was walking toward the designated protest lane. Kane stepped in front of me, without explanation. Did he address you directly? Yes. He ordered me to stop. Reyes tapped notes. Tone. Authoritative. Aggressive. Ava paused. Singling. Reyes looked up. Singling. Ava nodded. He targeted me specifically, despite others walking beside me. Another attorney leaned forward. Did he say anything discriminatory? Ava hesitated. He made assumptions. He used phrases like people like you and implied I was trouble. A man across the table frowned. Context matters. Are you saying he used coded language? Yes, Ava said quietly. Code used to justify bias. Reyes nodded slowly. Continue. Ava recounted each detail carefully. The way Kane touched her shoulder, how he blocked her movement, how he snapped her sign in half. Each moment felt heavier as she spoke it aloud. Reyes finally leaned back. Ms. Morgan, your composure in that moment is remarkable. Ava forced a small smile. Years of practice. Practice? The attorney asked. Ava looked down at her hands. I've faced authoritative dismissal before. In courtrooms, in committee hearings, in negotiations. I learned that reacting emotionally only gives people leverage. The room went quiet. Reyes cleared her throat. Thank you. Now, about the detainment. Before they could continue, the door opened and a young clerk poked her head inside. Counsel Reyes? Officer statements are ready. Reyes nodded. Bring them. Stacks of reports were handed out. Ava watched the lawyers skim through them, their expressions shifting in real time. One attorney muttered. He claimed she refused to comply. Reyes frowned, which is contradicted by 4 officer testimonies. Another attorney tapped a page. And body cam footage. A third spoke more quietly. And public video. Reyes exhaled. Okay, let's bring in Officer Hill. Minutes later, Officer Hill entered, one of the men who had escorted Ava to the van. He looked anxious, hands clasped behind his back. Officer Hill, Reyes said, thank you for appearing. We need clarification on your statement. Hill swallowed. Yes, ma'am. You wrote that Officer Kane instructed you to detain Ms. Morgan for refusing entry. Did you personally observe refusal? Hill hesitated. No, I didn't. So, why did you follow the command? Hill shifted uncomfortably. He's my superior, and I didn't want conflict. Ava looked at him gently. I understand. Hill met her eyes. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was right. Reyes nodded. Does your statement reflect the full truth? No, Hill took a breath. Ms. Morgan followed protocol. She wasn't resisting. I should have said something. Why didn't you? Reyes asked. Hill's voice lowered. Because no one ever does. A painful silence followed. Reyes closed her folder. Thank you, Officer Hill. You may go. After he left, another officer entered. Then another. Their stories aligned. Kane acted emotionally, aggressively, irrationally. He escalated. He overstepped. But none of them had stopped him. By the time the last officer finished, the room felt heavy with an unspoken truth. Kane's actions weren't an isolated incident. They were part of a pattern everyone had watched but rarely challenged. Reyes finally turned to Ava. Ms. Morgan, we have enough to proceed with disciplinary action. Ava breathed out slowly. What happens next? We open a formal misconduct investigation. Officer Kane has already been placed on temporary leave. Ava blinked. Already? Reyes nodded. The lieutenant made the call. A strange mix of relief and sadness washed over Ava. He'll say it's political. He might, Reyes said, but the evidence is overwhelming. A soft knock sounded at the door. The clerk whispered, News stations are requesting statements. Reyes sighed. Of course they are. Ava rubbed her temples. I don't want to turn this into a spectacle. You don't have to, Reyes said, but transparency helps credibility. And your voice may calm the community. Ava closed her eyes briefly. They're angry. With reason, Reyes replied. But leadership matters, even symbolic leadership. Ava opened her eyes. Symbolic leadership comes with a cost. Reyes softened. Only you could decide if you want to carry that burden. Ava didn't respond immediately. The weight of years of activism, laws drafted, meetings fought through, battles won and lost, rested heavily on her shoulders. Finally, she said, I'll speak, but not now, not without a full picture. Reyes nodded. Fair. A moment later, The door creaked open again. Hill peeked inside, hesitant. "Ms. Morgan?" "Yes." "I just want to say thank you for standing your ground." Ava offered a small smile. "Officer Hill, you can stand your ground too. Next time, for someone else." Hill's eyes flickered. Hopeful, guilty, determined. "I'll try." When the door closed, Reyes folded her hands on the table. "Ms. Morgan, we'll contact you when we have updates. You'll likely be asked to testify at the disciplinary hearing." Ava nodded, her voice steady. "I'll be there." She stood, gathering her bag. Her legs ached from the long hours, but her resolve felt sharper than ever. The investigation had begun, and Kane's facade as confidence, as authority, was already cracking. The next morning, Ava woke to the vibration of her phone. Dozens of notifications lit the screen: missed calls, encrypted messages from colleagues, alerts from advocacy groups, and messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Her heart tightened. She sat up slowly, rubbing her temples as she scanned the flood of headlines. Legal strategist detained at protest officer under review for misconduct. Who is Ava Morgan? Public outcry grows. A soft knock sounded on her door. "Ava, you awake?" It was her friend and fellow organizer, Jordan. "Come in." Ava called. Jordan entered, holding 2 coffees. "You're all over the news." "I know," Ava murmured. "I hadn't even opened the group chats yet." Jordan set a cup in her hand. "How are you holding up?" Ava hesitated. "Tired. Angry. Overwhelmed." Jordan nodded. "That sounds about right." Ava scrolled through messages. "People want me to speak tonight at the community center. They need reassurance," Jordan said. "They saw what happened to you. They're scared." Ava lowered her gaze. "I'm scared too." Jordan sat beside her. "But you're still here." She drew a slow breath. "What's the department saying?" Jordan grimaced. "They issued a generic statement last night. We are reviewing the incident and conducting a preliminary inquiry. You know, the usual damage control nonsense." Ava rubbed her forehead. "And Kane?" "He's officially on leave." Jordan's voice darkened. "Rumor is he thinks he's being targeted because it's you." Ava let out a bitter laugh. "He targeted me first." Jordan placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Be careful today. The louder this gets, the more pushback you'll face." "I know." But knowing didn't make it easier. Later that afternoon, Ava sat at a long table in the community center. Chairs filled quickly as residents poured in: activists, students, elders, church leaders, parents. The air buzzed with frustration and grief. The moderator tapped the microphone. "We're here to address the recent incident involving Ms. Ava Morgan. Thank you all for coming." Ava stood, feeling hundreds of eyes on her. "Thank you for being here. I'm still processing everything that happened." Someone near the front called out, "We're with you." Another voice added, "You're the reason these rallies ever had legal protection." Ava raised her hand gently. "I appreciate your support. Truly. But this is about more than me." She glanced around the packed room. "This is about every person who's been silenced, intimidated, dismissed, harmed. It's about the system that allows those moments to happen unchecked." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Jordan stepped forward. "Ava is helping the investigation proceed. We'll keep the community informed." A man stood. "What can we do right now?" Before Ava could answer, someone's phone buzzed loudly. Then another. Then all at once, the room filled with the chorus of ringing and vibrations. A woman gasped. The city posted an update. People began reading aloud. "They're launching a full formal review. Body cam footage will be released. A public disciplinary hearing has been scheduled." Ava's shoulders tensed. "Already?" Jordan exhaled. "That's fast. They must be under enormous pressure." A voice in the back called out, "What about Officer Kane? Is he being charged?" Ava shook her head. "The investigation will determine that. I'm not the one who decides." Another man asked, "Will you testify?" Ava nodded. "Yes, if they call me." The room applauded, but Ava's stomach twisted. not from fear of testifying, but from emotional cost of reliving the harassment again. After the meeting, as people gathered around her offering encouragement, someone tugged gently on her sleeve. It was an older woman, eyes full of quiet understanding. "You carry yourself with strength," she said softly. "But don't forget you're human too. You're allowed to feel what they try to make you suppress." Ava swallowed hard. "Thank you." The woman squeezed her hand. "We need your voice, but we need your well-being too." That evening, Ava returned home to another flood of messages, some supportive, some angry, some threatening. One anonymous message read, "Stay quiet, Ava. Let it go. You're making things worse." Another said, "You won't win. The system protects its own." Ava's throat tightened. She sat down, fingers trembling as she deleted the worst ones. A voicemail beeped next her attorney. "Ava, the disciplinary committee set a date. You'll be their key witness. Call me when you can." She leaned back, running a hand down her face. "God, this is happening fast." A knock sounded. Jordan again. "You okay?" Ava forced a tight smile. "Not really." Jordan stepped inside. "What happened now?" Ava handed her the phone. Jordan read the messages and shook her head. "People trying to scare you into silence. Classic tactic." Ava inhaled sharply. "It works, at least emotionally." Jordan held her shoulders. "You're not alone. We'll get through this." Ava nodded, though her chest remained heavy. Meanwhile, across the city, Kane sat in his apartment, blinds drawn, TV flickering. Every channel replayed the footage, his posture, his words. The moment he snapped her sign, headlines ran beneath the screen. Calls for accountability grow officers' history under scrutiny community, unified behind Ava Morgan. He muted the TV and slammed the remote onto the table. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. His phone buzzed with texts from colleagues. "Man, this looks bad. Why did you touch her shoulder?" "Bro, she wrote the law?" Kane groaned. "This is a witch hunt." He stood abruptly, pacing. "She made me look incompetent. She wanted this." But part of him, deep down, knew that wasn't true. He saw it in her eyes when she told him he crossed a line. She hadn't wanted a fight. He created it. Still, his pride wouldn't let him admit it. He grabbed his badge off the table, staring at the emblem. "I'm not the bad guy." But the badge suddenly felt heavier, and for the first time, doubt crept through the cracks in his certainty. Late at night, Ava sat by her window, city lights glowing below. She wrapped her hands around a cup of chamomile tea, trying to settle her racing thoughts. The community needed her. The city was waiting. The hearing was coming. And Kane's fate, and theirs, would be decided by what happened next. Ava exhaled slowly. Courage wasn't about not breaking. It was about choosing to stand again after you did. The municipal hearing chamber buzzed with tension long before Ava arrived. Rows of seats were filled. Community members, organizers, reporters, officers in uniform, legal observers with laptops open. The overhead lights were bright, too bright, giving the room a sharp, unforgiving clarity. Ava walked in quietly, her attorney beside her. A hush rippled through the crowd. "There she is. That's Ava Morgan. She's going to bury him." Ava inhaled slowly. She didn't want to bury anyone. She just wanted the truth acknowledged. At the front sat the disciplinary review committee. 3 members, solemn-faced, their posture rigid. Papers were neatly stacked before them. Monitors were prepared to show footage. Across the room, Officer Kane sat with his representative, stiff and pale. When his eyes met Ava's, a storm of resentment and fear flickered across his face. The chairwoman spoke up. "This hearing is now in session. We will begin with Officer Kane's testimony." Kane stood, adjusting his tie. He approached the podium like the floor might collapse under him. "Officer Kane," the chairwoman said, "you are under oath. Please recount the events at the protests." Kane cleared his throat. "Yes, ma'am. On the day in question, I was assigned to crowd control. The protests had become increasingly agitated. I observed Ms. Morgan attempting to push through restricted areas. She refused repeated instructions to step back. Ava closed her eyes briefly. Lie number 1. Kane continued. She raised her voice, agitated the crowd, and became confrontational. I feared the situation would escalate. I acted to maintain public safety. Did you, at any point, make contact with Ms. Morgan? The chairwoman asked. Yes, Kane said confidently, but only to prevent her from entering a high-risk zone. She resisted. Whispers broke out across the room. Ava tightened her grip on the table edge. Her attorney leaned in. Stay calm. His contradictions will speak for themselves. The chairwoman nodded to a technician. Play body cam footage from Officer Kane's unit. The screen behind them lit up. Ava's breath caught as she watched the moment unfold. Her calm, Kane stepping into her path, his dismissive tone, the hand on her shoulder, the sign snapping. The room reacted in waves, gasps, uneasy shifting, muffled outrage. Kane's jaw clenched as he stared at the footage, as if seeing for the first time outside his own narrative. The chairwoman leaned forward. Officer Kane, the video does not show Ms. Morgan raising her voice or resisting. It shows you blocking her path. Kane stammered. Well, videos can be misleading. Angles can distort. 5 angles? The chairwoman asked sharply. Kane's representative whispered something to him, but Kane shook his head stubbornly. I know what I saw, he insisted. A man in the audience muttered. And we know what we saw, too. The chairwoman sighed. Officer Kane, we'll return to your statements. Ms. Morgan, please step forward. Ava rose, smoothing her blazer, her heart pounding. She stood at the podium, facing the committee. Ms. Morgan, the chairwoman said, we appreciate your presence today. Begin whenever you're ready. Ava nodded. Thank you. I will speak clearly and factually. She took a breath. On the day of the protest, I was walking through the designated entry lane. Officer Kane approached me without explanation and ordered me to stop. When I asked for clarification, he dismissed me. I quoted the relevant section of the protest law. He became irritated. He blocked my movement, touched me without cause, and broke my sign. The chairwoman interjected gently. Did you ever refuse an order? No, Ava said. I complied with every instruction given, even when those instructions violated state law. Kane scoffed loudly. Oh, please. The chairwoman snapped. Officer Kane, you will remain silent unless addressed. Kane glared at the table. Ava continued. When I stated that I had the right to proceed, he accused me of provoking the crowd. He ordered officers to detain me without legal justification. Did you raise your voice? Another committee member asked. No, Ava said softly. I didn't have to. The law was on my side. Ms. Morgan, the chairwoman asked, is it true that you helped draft the protest law? A murmur swept through the chamber. Ava nodded. Yes, I co-authored the provisions related to peaceful assembly and crowd control. Kane's representative muttered something under their breath. The chairwoman's brows lifted. So, you were intimately familiar with the regulations at the time of the incident? Yes, Ava replied. And Officer Kane violated multiple clauses, including the ones designed to prevent disproportionate response. A committee member looked at Kane. Officer, were you aware of Ms. Morgan's identity at the time? Kane clenched his jaw. No. And now that you are aware, the committee member continued, do you feel your actions were justified? Kane hesitated. I did what I thought was right to keep order. The chairwoman nodded to the technician. Show the bystander footage. The screen shifted again, multiple angles showing the crowd's calm before Kane's involvement. Ava quoting the law. Kane breaking her sign. Protesters reacting in horror. Everything was clear. Kane swallowed hard. Officer Kane, the chairwoman said, this footage contradicts nearly every part of your testimony. Kane snapped. You don't understand what it's like out there. These people, these protesters, they push boundaries. They question everything. We're supposed to maintain control. A hush fell. Ava watched him closely. The cracks in his composure were widening. Kane continued, voice rising. If they don't fear consequences, they'll walk all over us. The whole system collapses. I did what any officer would have done. The chairwoman stared at him. Fear is not a tool of lawful policing, and your bias is showing. Kane's face flushed. I'm not biased. The chairwoman's tone softened, but only slightly. Your actions say otherwise. A long silence followed. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. Thank you, Ms. Morgan. You may return to your seat. The committee will review the testimonies and release a decision within 48 hours. Ava nodded and sat down, her hands trembling slightly. Jordan squeezed her shoulder from behind. You did perfect, Jordan whispered. You told the truth. Ava wasn't sure she felt perfect. She just felt drained. Across the room, Kane sat rigid, staring at nothing. The foundation of his certainty, his power, was eroding under the weight of facts, footage, and public scrutiny, and the city was watching every second. 2 days later, the municipal building lobby was a storm of activity. Reporters crowded the entrance, cameras rolling, microphones ready. Community members held signs, some bearing Ava's name, others demanding accountability. The tension felt thick enough to taste. Ava stood just inside the hallway, hands clasped, heart racing. Jordan hovered nearby. You ready? Jordan whispered. No, Ava admitted, but I'll go anyway. Jordan smiled softly. That's what makes you powerful. Before Ava could respond, a clerk stepped out from the hearing chamber. Ms. Morgan? They're ready to read the decision. Ava nodded, exhaling slowly. Let's go. The chamber was quieter than it had been during the hearing. No crosstalk, no frantic scribbling, just a single focused silence. The disciplinary committee sat at the front, papers stacked neatly before them. Officer Kane sat to the left, hands gripping the edges of his chair so tightly his knuckles whitened. The chairwoman adjusted her microphone. This hearing will now reconvene for the official decision regarding the conduct of Officer Daniel Kane. Ava's pulse quickened. Kane leaned forward slightly, jaw tight. The chairwoman began. After reviewing all evidence, including body cam footage, bystander recordings, officer testimonies, and Ms. Morgan's statement, the committee finds that Officer Kane engaged in misconduct. A murmur swept through the room. Kane's face twitched. The chairwoman continued. Specifically, unlawful detainment, violation of protest access protocol, use of coercive intimidation, destruction of civilian property, and discriminatory targeting. Kane stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. His representative yanked his sleeve. Sit. Kane sat, but his chest heaved with restrained rage. The chairwoman pressed on. We also find significant discrepancies between Officer Kane's testimony and verified evidence. These inconsistencies undermine his credibility as a law enforcement officer. Ava inhaled deeply. The room felt heavier. Therefore, the chairwoman said, effective immediately, Officer Daniel Kane is terminated from duty. The room erupted. Soft gasps, a few cheers muffled quickly by staff, stunned silent from others. Kane shot to his feet. You're firing me? Over her. Over some activist who thinks she's above. Officer Kane, the chairwoman said firmly, you have lost the privilege of this badge through your own choices. He shook his head wildly. You don't understand. People like her, they twist everything. Ava froze. People like her. Still, even now, the chairwoman slammed her gavel. Security. 2 officers stepped forward. Kane jerked his arm away as they approached. Don't touch me. I didn't do anything wrong, he shouted. This is political. This is... He locked eyes with Ava. This is your fault. Ava held his gaze. Her voice stayed soft. No, these are your consequences. For a moment, Kane stared at her as if seeing the truth, raw and undeniable. Then his face crumpled, not in remorse, but in fear. He was escorted out. The door shut behind him with a final, echoing thud. Outside the chamber, a swarm of reporters surged toward Ava the moment she stepped into the hallway. Ms. Morgan, how do you feel? Do you believe justice was served? What message do you want to send to the public? Is the system changing? Ava raised her hands gently. Please, one at a time. Microphones hovered like hungry insects. Ava took a breath, straightened her posture, and spoke with calm intention. Today's decision is not the end. It's a beginning. Accountability is only one step in the long work of rebuilding trust. I didn't want Officer Kane to lose his job. I wanted the truth acknowledged. I wanted the pattern recognized. She scanned the faces around her. This isn't about one officer. This is about a system that needs structural change, real transparency, real community oversight, real investment in training and cultural competency. Ms. Morgan, a reporter asked gently, how are you personally? Ava hesitated. Then she answered honestly, tired, but hopeful. Accountability is exhausting, but necessary. Another reporter pressed forward. Do you plan to take legal action against the department? Ava shook her head. My goal isn't punishment. It's progress. The crowd listened with surprising quiet. Ava continued, I want policies reviewed. I want community voices centered. I want officers trained to recognize bias before it causes harm. I want a city where my involvement in writing a law doesn't mean I'm treated differently, where everyone is treated with dignity. Applause spread through the hallway, soft at first, then growing. Jordan stepped beside her. You did good, Ava. Ava managed a tired smile. Thanks. Hours later, the protesters outside the municipal building had gathered into a peaceful rally. When Ava emerged, cheers erupted. Ava! 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 You stood up for all of us. You made history today. Someone handed her a megaphone. Ava shook her head. No, thank you. I'll speak naturally. She stepped onto the low concrete platform near the building steps, looked out the crowd illuminated by late afternoon light, and let the wind carry her voice. I didn't ask for what happened, she said, but I'm grateful to stand here now. The crowd leaned in. What happened to me was painful. It was humiliating, and it was wrong. But it also brought something important into the open. Accountability is possible when the truth is undeniable. She pointed gently toward them. And when people refused to look away, applause rippled outward. We fought for this protest law because we believed in the right to speak, to gather, to demand justice. That right belongs to everyone. And today proved it. She lowered her voice. The fight isn't over. It never is. But we keep going, not because it's easy, but because it matters. A quiet settled over the crowd, warm, united, heavy with shared purpose. Ava's eyes stung, not with sorrow this time, with something like relief. Hours later, when everything had calmed, Ava returned to her quiet office. The night sky cast soft shadows across her desk. Her notebook lay open, pages filled with scribbled policy notes. She sank into her chair, exhausted but steady. Jordan texted, "You okay? Need anything?" Ava responded, "Rest. And tomorrow, more work." Jordan replied with a heart. Ava closed her eyes, letting a breath escape her chest. Justice had come, but justice always came with a cost she had learned to carry, even when it weighed heavier than it should. After a moment, she opened her notebook and began writing again, small notes, revisions, ideas for stronger protections. Because the system wasn't fixed. But she wasn't done fighting. Not now. Not ever.